Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far with the Toronto Major just around the corner. Big debate is being had with Karma not being OpTic's coach yet, but it may well be the case in the near future, whether coaches should be allowed back on stage behind the players as they used to back in the day, and they still are to this day in games such as Halo. Karma reckons that he would quite like to see it, doesn't believe it's a necessity, but Octane reckons absolutely that's a terrible idea and should not ever happen again. Very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Just to mention on the Rostermania side actually, we got this from Afro, finally responding in some part to getting benched by the Minnesota Rokkr. Seems unlikely at this point that he's going to come back into that team. I think he was great at the start of the season, was their best player, but obviously lately they've improved quite significantly without him. So I imagine he's going to be there until the end of the season, and maybe then either he stays and they bring him back if they don't perform at Champs, or they're going to probably sell him on elsewhere. So we'll see how this goes, but Afro obviously in a bit of a predicament right now for what he does from now to the end of the season. There's also been lots of discussion on this general topic, on the topic of really how much these players are paid, whether they pay too much, whether things need to change on this front going forwards. And Jacob Wolf says last night, top esports players have long been grossly overpaid, but team owners and execs acting as if they haven't been complicit in paying those salaries is disingenuous. The entire industry, leagues, teams, players, etc. all scale spends faster than growth could keep up. This, I think, is probably on the money, to be honest. We don't really know how much some of the players are getting paid, but probably the top ones is in the region of 400, 500k. The average salary is maybe 150, I don't know, something like that. And there's an argument that for many of these players, it's a bit too high given what they actually bring to the league in terms of, well, growing it in the first place, the content that doesn't get done by most of the players, etc, etc. And lots of expectations here, especially from Jake Hale, that teams will scale back their salary offerings next season, especially if they didn't do so this year. So some teams, I believe, coming into this season did actually say, look guys, we can't pay you as much as we were before, we're having to make all these layoffs with the company, we've got to be a little bit leaner, cut cost in certain aspects, and definitely salaries will fall as a result, I think, on average over the next season or so. But fundamentally, some of the top teams, if they do want to still try and pay those top salaries, they will attract a lot of the top talent. Now, some players would probably be happy to take a bit of a pay cut to play with a team that they believe can win, or at least a team of players that they're comfortable with, but still, the average lifespan of a player in the CDL is probably, what, 2 years, 2.5, 3 years. Okay, some players last for a decade, some players last for about 3 or 4 months. So, you've got to maybe make the most of the opportunity when you have it, because if you're able to, if you're a big name player, you can get like 300k salary a year, for 3 or 4 years. If you treat yourself well and you put enough money away, that can pretty much set you up for life, even if your career doesn't last an incredibly long time. So the players, it's definitely a debate, right? If you get offered a big salary to go somewhere, or offered a lesser salary to go with a team that might win, what do you value more? I mean, it's a debate we had with Pred in last night's video. But Jake Hale even says that some teams, he knows some teams at least, want to start bringing these inflated figures back down to earth. He actually comes up with quite an interesting idea here, that instead of giving someone like a 200k a year guaranteed salary, you'd say, look, you get 90k guaranteed. If you win an event, you get another 30k. If you make champs, you get another 30k. Some sort of bonuses, right, on top of things would be pretty interesting. So the teams have an incentive for their team to do well, because if you do well, then, you gain back in return elsewhere. So that's maybe an idea that instead of, it's kind of what executives do in the corporate world, right? They give themselves a certain base salary, but then all these bonuses stacked on top if they do well. Some of those bonuses are easy to get, like, let's say, making champs, you should be able to do it. But, some of those bonuses, less easy to get. Just one potential idea, but of course, you've also got to look at the fact that there's certain players that are worth their weight in gold, right? I mean, Hydra's been absolutely killing it lately. This might be the first time ever I've actually seen on the CDL scorecard they do of the best performances of the week. Hydra has 2 of them in the Search and Destroy, and this was back-to-back, right? Yeah, in the Search and Destroy game 2, and then in that Control game 3, Simp is the other member, of course. And Hydra's numbers so far, I mean, this is a 99 overall, a 1.17 in hardpoint, 1.87 in Surge, with a great first blood red as well. These numbers are just absolutely absurd, but yeah, is it a real surprise? But now let's go on to this coaching debate, because it's been a big talking point with OpTic over the last few months with the whole Rambo Dashy thing that never worked out, and Dashy leaving the team, well, Dashy leaving the team initially, then Rambo leaving the team, and now he's officially gone from the entire organisation. There's been a big question over the last couple of years, such as in this screenshot here, with Pomage behind the OpTic guys back at ESWC. I'm guessing this was this Advanced Warfare 2015, right? I'm pretty sure, maybe it was 2016 with the Black Ops 3 days. I kind of forget which year this was, but back then, coaches, I'm thinking it was Advanced Warfare, because I think when the CWL came around, you could no longer do this, but coaches standing behind the teams. In regular sports and stuff, the coaches can speak to the players during the game whenever they like, if they, well, it depends on the sport, I suppose, but they can scream things from the touchline and stuff like this. Whereas in Call of Duty, the coaches are only allowed on stage at the end of the game. They have to come up at the end of it. They can speak to the players like, oh, we did this, we did that map. But also, like, once the map is over, the players, let's say they lost 250-249. They don't want to hear their coach saying, oh, unlucky guys, we should have done X, Y, Z. They just want to hear, okay, what about the next map? What's your insight on what they do on the next map, what we should try and do to prepare? But, there's no coach, let's say in Counter-Strike, the coaches can't speak during the gameplay, but they can hold timeouts in between the game where the coach can come on and say, hey, like, they're doing X, we should do Y instead to counter it, and give the team some ideas. So it's a bit of a debate that's been had for years in COD, whether this should be allowed again. Now, Pomage wasn't really a proper coach, and we'll see what Karma has to say on that in a second, that actually, by not being a proper coach, it was actually kind of valuable. I think Big Timer did this for Halo, did he not? Did, like, Big T, I think, pretty sure for one time, like, Big T was OpTic's Halo coach, and he was just literally told, tell them when the power-ups are coming online, and that'll just help the guys out. But back in the day, this was a super regular phenomenon, right? This is Hilton from, I mean, what a crazy event this was back in the day. But back then, the coaches could stand behind the pros. They would just talk all sorts of trash to the team on the other side. That was basically their job, was to be the hype man and the trash talker for the team onto the other guys. And it worked pretty damn well. And that was a crazy time in COD. Over the last few years, though, coaches haven't been allowed. And there's been a big debate as to whether they should be allowed again or not. Hex obviously talked with Karma just a few days ago, discussing whether he could be the new head coach for OpTic, whether that's a decision they would want to pursue. And it seems, based on this episode, that they might well do it next season. I don't think Karma wants to disrupt the current progress OpTic are experiencing, but Karma would quite like to come in as their coach next year. He says, look, he doesn't reckon coaches really do that much in COD. He thinks that standing behind the team and giving them ideas isn't necessary, but it's a nice to have, and he reckons that he would quite like to see it. Doesn't believe it's needed, but he would like to see it. Whereas Octane says, terrible idea, awful idea if that was to be the case. And maybe some of the decision is on the pro side is that if the coach is behind you, enabling, let's say the coach just stands behind you and one of your players is bad at communication, the coach could just comm for that player, just do all the comms, just stand behind their screen and do the communication for them, and also could call out like, okay, when you go into the next hard point, or the points on rotation. And maybe that's a skill set that the pros should have themselves.
Why we don't allow for coaches to be out there? Halo does a good job. So what does a coach actually do right now? Okay.
I mean, well, then this is where it's like you guys are gonna look at me and be like, "There's no way you want to coach, though." Like I do think to like a certain extent, like not being able to talk on stage or not being able to like talk it between the game, like dude, it's we're not like the NFL or something like, yo, let's take a timeout, come over, bro, like call a play. Like I think the coach is like, don't get me wrong, I've said a lot over the years of like, I don't think they do anything, and like to a certain extent, I don't think they do anything. I also think there's a lot of things that they do that like help outside of the game.
Of course.
I think that is like the biggest thing. So at the end of the day, I mean, this is my theory, and like I know I'm not wrong about it. Is like when it comes down to the game, like, dude, if you guys are all playing, I can't change your decision in game. I can help you before that match and before all that, and be like, well, I hope that you guys all understand this. This is, we're on the same page for this, how we want to do this, how we want to do that, X, Y, Z, right? But you know what I did to Pomage? I said, Pomage, look at my screen and just tell me if I see someone that I don't see.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
We don't have power weapons. We don't have any of that.
Yeah.
They'll help you rotations, because, I mean, a lot of times when you watch, it'll be like, it gets to 15 seconds left on the hill, and someone's like, yo, rotate. But, you know, having that other voice in your ear, like, just preparing you for that. Like, so the thought comes in quicker. That's, like, what might happen.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a big thing, but I also don't think that... I feel like the stigma of, like, coaches being up on stage is, like, so bad from back then. And it wouldn't be that.
From people yelling
at
other
it wouldn't be
people.
That shit. But it
Mr.
also
Rex,
wouldn't be like...
and shit.
Yeah, it wouldn't be like OP, like, holy shit, dude. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be crazy. I think it'd be cool. It'd be something different. I don't think it's needed. I do like it, though.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know.
The Ghost era Mr. X type coaches who are calming during matches, nah, that's ass. Coaches calming during matches in COD would never work. That shit would be OP. You would literally not have to think. That's like, thinking in COD is like 85% of the skill gap, and then the other 15 is shooting your gun straight. Like, thinking in COD is like the entire skill gap. And if you have a coach that's telling you what to do on the map at all times, you're literally just a bunch of 4 morons sitting next to each other shooting your guns. Like, there's just no thought process. Head empty, bro. Like, there's not a thought between those eyes. Like, there's no point in that. That shit's ass. Or does it make sense in Halo, kind of? Because you have to, like, time power weapons and shit, which I guess, like, that helps. But, like, not really.
So it's been a big talking point for years here, right? And Karma's opinion is that, okay, I'd like to see it, but I don't really think it's going to matter that much. And Octane obviously completely disagrees with it. He doesn't want Shane behind him or anything like that, or JCap behind him during the game to give them active ideas. I personally would quite like to see it, just because the entertainment value does, I think, go up somewhat when you do have extra coaches behind. You get the Mr. X trash talk from back in the day, you know, that's why you got dropped, Clay, this type of stuff. You can't snipe like that, Clay. All this stuff that Method has been saying on stream a lot lately all came from these legendary coach behind the players moments. But I do kind of agree that the players, a lot of these skill sets the coaches can bring in, let's say calling out rotations, calling out when you should do X, Y, Z, the in-game leader or the team itself should be able to do that. If you've got a coach that can just comp for a certain player or could just call out, and your players just have to go brain dead mode and just kill things, and your coach tells you what to do all the time in hardpoint and stuff, I don't think that really shows you what the best team is. Now, okay, the coach actually has a more important role there and doesn't just sit behind the scenes in the shadows as they presently do, but I also kind of want to see the team with the best in-game leader, the team with the best comms that can understand and communicate the best. That is also an advantage, right? Rather than having your coach kind of bail you out in those scenarios. So I don't really think Karma would want to be one of those coaches anyway that did that type of stuff, but I thought it was an interesting debate that was had there because Octane and Karma don't have exactly the same opinion on it. Just wanted to close out here with a couple of different, images actually from the highest kills and highest, etc. from the Stage 5 qualifiers. Awakening was number 1 at 1.26 KD. Highest untraded kills by some way, though, went to Hydra with 307, way above Beans in second with 277. Most kills as well went to Hydra as well with 423, so it's a very high percentage of kills that were untraded, especially because he's an SMG. Like, that's pretty absurd. Highest assist goes to Clay. Ghosty has the most control captured hills at 13. S&D aces goes to aBeZy, who got 2 over these last few weeks, which is still pretty remarkable. Most diffusers goes to Insight. Most plants goes to Standy, actually, and we're not going to see Arcitys on there. We saw that the other day. There's also these numbers. This is the entire season, I believe, so far, going into the final major. So overall KD, Slayer rating. Slayer rating is quite interesting. It just kind of extrapolates how many kills a player gets in a series to if it was a game 5 round 11 type series, how many would they get on average. And Pred has the number 1 with 88.6, then Hydra, then Scrappy, then quite a way behind aBeZy and then Shotzzy. So like the top Slayers are pretty clear here, even if they might not necessarily be the top MVP candidates, but we do see a lot of familiar names here over overall KD. Adjusted KD kind of caters a bit more towards search and destroy, so a great S&D player will get a fair bit of a buff here, such as Pred, for example, who has the second highest S&D KD of the entire season. But very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. These are the games here, just to remind, for tomorrow. We'll discuss it in more detail in tomorrow morning's video. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.